think I just filmed this entire video and never hit record. Well, that's unfortunate. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Alex from Alex's Innovations, and today I'm going to be showing you how to embroider on a friendship bracelet. But first, this video is sponsored by DMC Threads. DMC Threads is a company that produces all sorts of fiber threads, so that includes yarn, embroidery thread, etc. And so they sent me some samples of their embroidery thread and other related threads so I could sort of review them for you and show you what it's all about. First, they sent me, probably most importantly for my brand, because I primarily make friendship bracelets, they first sent me some Threadship thread. This is their newest line of thread, and it's optimized for making friendship bracelets, so it's designed not to separate easily, although it can separate if you want it to. And it comes in so many wonderful colors. It comes in variegated colors, which means like color changing between white and another color, solid colors, pastels, blacks, whites, the whole shebang. And then they've sent me a little bit more over here with a beautiful, might I add, bracelet in the front. Wow. And they also sent me this Kumihimo disc, and this Kumihimo disc, oh, it says Kumihimo disc, wow. But this is used in conjunction with the Threadship threads, so you can learn how to make Japanese braided bracelets, which I might do a tutorial for them in the future, but let me know if I should do that. In addition, they sent me some of their cotton pearl line, so this includes threads that are sort of have a more twisty appearance, so they can't be divided. So this thread looks like this. And I really like this thread also because it has a sort of pearlescent or shiny texture when knotting with it. I actually went over all sorts of the threads that I use in my supplies I use and recommend video, and at the very end I cover all the types of DMC threads that I use, which ones I like for which specific purposes and whatnot. They also sent me some thread called Diamant or Diamant. I don't know how to pronounce it specifically, but it looks like this, and what this is you can make any thread metallic by just weaving these in with your thread, which is super cool because it gives you that much more customability. Every thread that you have can turn into a metallic thread, which is really crazy and also really cool. Next, in this adorable little tin that says DMC on it, they gave me a bunch of traditional like DMC threads. That's like what I think of when I hear DMC threads. I just think of all of these threads that you like see in Michael's or Joann's or Walmart, like sort of hanging up or in the little bins. And they also gave me some moulin thread, which is thread that has stuff woven into it to make it very metallic. And this always seems so like lovely and fluffy, and like I've never actually worked with it because none of the stores in my area have it, but yeah, all of these threads are really pretty, and I'm very grateful to DMC for partnering with me and sending me all of this stuff so I can review it for you, but also make tutorials with it. So look at that. Wow. Thumbnail idea, perhaps? JK unless. And finally, in this adorable little tote bag that I really want to use as a pencil case, but I don't want to ruin it by like if I accidentally leave like a pen open or something, but it's wonderful. They sent me some embroidery supplies. So they sent me first some gold tapestry needles, which can be used when you're weaving in the ends to your bracelet, so the hole is big enough for threads to fit through, so you don't have to like pinch the threads together and like cut it off and make it shorter. But if you do have to do that, like if you have to stick it through fabric, then they also gave me a needle threader. And needle threaders are the most convenient things in the world because they really speed up that embroidery threading process. There's detailed instructions on the back, but this is really nice because sometimes I want to embroider and I don't because it takes so long to thread the needle, and so this is like a really genius idea. And they also sent me floss number stickers, which is super cool because I struggle. I once tried to label all of my threads and it didn't really work because I can't write that small with Sharpie, so that was unfortunate. And then they sent me a fun sticker, which I'll be putting somewhere prominently on my clipboard full of stickers, so that's cool. Finally, they sent me all of this thread as a recycled thread for packaging, which is super cool because they used thread that probably like didn't fit their dye lot, like when they have to dye thread a specific color, and it's very slightly off. They can't really sell it as that specific number, so they have no choice but to throw it out. So they sent it to me here, and so this is, I'm going to be reusing a lot of this as packaging. Well, all of it. I can't use any of it because it's not the thickness of thread I use. It smells like pizza. Someone in my house is making pizza. If you order a package from me on Etsy sometime in the next 6 months or so, I most likely will be adding some of this in as confetti in lieu of my regular confetti because it's so cool, and like it's not bits and pieces like my normal recycled thread is, so it's not gonna like fall apart and like stain your packaging. But anyway, that's really cool, and I just wanted to thank DMC again for sending me all of these wonderful products. I had a lot of fun reviewing them, and now for the actual video, I'm going to be teaching you guys how to embroider on a bracelet. I would like to preface this by saying that you should have some embroidery experience before doing this, but if you don't, I'm going to be giving a sort of a quick overview, I'm gonna try and go like medium speed. So if you're a beginner, like if you watch it twice, you should be okay, and if you're advanced, you can just sort of put me on 1.5 speed. So I'll be like do the knot like really fast and you'll get it. But yeah, I'll show you some of the basic stitches you need on fabric, and then I'll go over the supplies you need and sort of the bracelet you need. But I made this bracelet with thread ship variegated thread, like the thread that they sent me, which is really cool, and so I'll be embroidering on that. And hopefully you can take these skills and you can embroider many things, but I will be showing you how to embroider just one thing. Alright, so to embroider on your bracelet, first you'll need an embroidery hoop. This is just going to be to practice the stitching beforehand. This one is a 7-inch hoop that I got, I think, at Joann's or Michael's, but they both sell them. It's just as wood, it has a certain screw at the top, nothing too fancy. And then you'll need some fabric to practice the stitching on. I'm quite sure this fabric is either cotton or linen, but it's pretty thick and it has this cross-stitched sort of texture, so you can easily stick your needle in between those folds. In addition, you will need thread to embroider with, so I'm going to be using DMC's thread ship thread. You'll also need some embroidery needles, and I probably should have said this before, but I would recommend not doing this unless you are 15 or over, or if you have a significant experience with sewing and needles, because it is very easy to poke yourself with a needle, even if you've embroidered before, because friendship bracelets are a lot thicker, and therefore you have to push a lot harder to get it through, and if you miss, it's gonna hurt a lot. So I'd recommend not doing this unless you're 15 or over, or if you're comfortable sewing or embroidering. But you know your own strength, don't do anything stupid. I'm not liable if you hurt yourself. Just a disclaimer. So yeah, so there's that. And which of these are DMC? They're size 5, although you can use probably anywhere between 3 and 9. I just like 5 the most. And then this one is optional, but it's really gonna help, is going to be a needle threader. So I'm going to be using this one that DMC sent me. It has settings for 3 different needles. So this one is for very fine thread, this one's for medium thread, and this one is for large thread. So I'm going to probably start with this one, but this just makes it easier for the thread to go through the needle, so it's not necessary, but I will be using it, so it's like a 3-in-1 sort of tool. So once you have everything you need, I'll put links to everything in the description, but for now I'm going to be cutting a piece of fabric that's about as big as my hoop, maybe a little bigger on each side, and then I'm going to be attaching that to my hoop. So I have my fabric right here, and I've separated my hoop into its 2 components. So I'm going to take the inner ring, it's the one without any sort of clip on it, and I'm going to drape the fabric across the hoop so it sort of sticks out and you can see where it is, and make sure there's like enough boundary on either side. And then grab your other hoop and try and fit that around, and if it's too small, then you can hold this ring at the top, and then with your other hand twist outward, so it'll be counterclockwise, so twist outward to loosen, and then try again, and if it doesn't work, just keep repeating that. But once you're done, then hold that ring at the top and twist it inward towards you. This will tighten it a little bit, and so it's going to be a little loose now, so what you can do to fix this is you can turn it around and then hold down this ring while you pull up slightly, like that. And so what this will do is this will tighten the fabric and make it a little bit more sturdy, so you can better direct your stitches without everything becoming crunched or anything. So right now I'm going to be doing a couple practice stitches just to make sure that we're all on the same page. I'm also going to be using this pen to mark where here I'm going to be stitching. You can use a pencil, a colored pencil, red pen, nothing. I'm just going to be using this black pen because it'll be easier for you guys to see. First, we're going to be doing a running stitch. A running stitch is a series of dashed lines, so it's going to look something like that. And when you're drawing, I recommend drawing this out, especially for beginners, just so you can get an idea to make all your stitches relatively the same length. I'd recommend drawing everything out like this, maybe make it about 3 to 4 inches long, just so you can get a solid idea of what's going on. So now I'm going to thread the needle, so I'm going to grab my needle first, and my thread, as well as my needle threader. And first I'm going to grab one of my needles, and then I'm going to take this out, let's test this out for the first time. And then I'm going to be, let's say I'm going to stitch with red just so you can easily see against the black. So I'm going to grab, the really nice thing about DMC threads in general, but also these thread ship threads, is that I can just pull on this and it will just come out of the little skein. It's so nice and easy, so I'm just going to grab a piece about 3/4 of a meter long, and then I'm going to cut that. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to split this thread in half. This is really nice about the threadship thread, is that you can split it in half or however many parts you want, and it's also really sturdy when you don't want it to split, like, because sometimes DMC thread will split, but not this threadship thread. It doesn't split when you're knotting with it, which is really, really nice. So I'm going to split this, and then I'm going to be threading this through the needle. So this is going to be the fun part. If you don't have a needle threader, this is going to be a little annoying for you. So first you're going to take this thin part and stick it through the needle, and so squish those down, and then thread your thread through the big hole that thread creates, like that. Pull that through. Alright, and then pull through with your halved thread, and there you go. So, wow, instant lifesaver. Take the end of the thread that's not on the needle and sort of make an overhand knot, and that's just going to make it so you don't pull the thread all the way out on the other end. So now we're going to get embroidering. So take your needle and stick it underneath and sort of brush up against the fabric. You can see my needle over here, so you can sort of judge where your needle is. So I'm going to try and steer it so it's right at the beginning of my first line, and then I'm going to stick it up, being careful to leave my hand over here and not right on top. Stick it up and then pull it through. And then I'm not going to pull too tightly because remember we tied that knot on the other end, so I'm going to make sure that that stays there. Now I'm going to take the needle and stick it back at the very end of the line I drew. So remember, stick it right down and hold your hand so on the other edge my fingers are on the side. So push that down and then come to the bottom and pull that through. So there you go, that's your first stitch. So now start again, so push your needle underneath the thread very lightly, you don't want to poke through, until you can get close to where the beginning of your needle is. I'm looking at the camera right now instead of my extra challenge. Okay, so anyway, there you go. So you stick it all the way up, bring it up, and then right through the bottom. Oh wow, I skipped a stitch. Oh no, right through the bottom of that second stitch. So that's a running stitch. You can just keep repeating this, so sticking your needle through the top of that first stitch and down towards the bottom of that stitch. I'd recommend getting really good at this stitch before you start the back stitch. The back stitch is basically the running stitch, but more. So I recommend you get really good at these first. This is less of a how to embroider on a bracelet and more of a how to embroider lesson, honestly. But you know what? If it's gonna help you, then I'm gonna do it. It's too late also, I already started. Plus embroidering is really fun. I have a lot of fun with it. I like to listen to podcasts because, like, when making bracelets, I can watch Netflix. Like, I've been really watching Criminal Minds lately, for those of you, like, watching my TikToks and my Instagram stories. But for this, you kind of have to focus on where you're putting the needle, so it's very eyes-on, in a sense. Anyway, I sort of spread out towards the end, because I was getting really excited and talking about Criminal Minds. Anyway, that's the running stitch. So now we're going to be doing the back stitch, which is a variant of the running stitch. So I'm going to be using another color, let's just say orange, because, you know, are we gonna form a rainbow? Yes. Do I mind? Not at all. Every month is Pride Month. Plus it's like almost Halloween, so double entendre, baby. I'm gonna split this one into two, just like we did before, so the threads are equal length. So there you go. Then I'm gonna grab my handy dandy, whoa, oh, it's a little tangled there. Alexa, play Can You See the Light? I'm gonna grab my needle threader and thread that through my needle, and then stick my thread through there. This is the split thread because I just split it. And pull that through, pull the split thread through, and voila! And then remember at the end, remember to tie that thread off. So now I'm going to draw the exact same pattern that I did for running stitch, but the stitching is going to be a little bit different. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw this dotted line. I'm going to try and make the spaces between the lines and the lines themselves approximately equal, because we're also going to be knotting in between the lines. You know, like in between the lines, like that we all kind of watched as a kid but don't remember anymore. I know I did. So we're going to start again. So I'm going to bring my needle underneath and sort of, you know, smoosh around in this general area until you're right below. Pull it up, remember not to pull too far, and then come back down just like you did in the running stitch. So now stick your needle up in the second stitch like you were going to be doing a running stitch, and then pull that through. But now the plot thickens, because instead of needling down here, you're going to be sticking your needle up here. So you're going to be sticking in the hole of the last stitch. So you're going back, hence back stitch. So now you're going to be sticking your needle at the end of that second stitch that you drew. And then you're going to go back to the hole at the end of that back stitch and pull through. And then you're going to go forward to the next stitch. And then, say it with me kids, back. There. Then we're going to go forward. I'm having a lot more fun than I should be embroidering back stitches. Then pull forward, and then say it with me kids, go back. I sound like the guy who does the push-up tests. In American schools, they do a fitness screening. Oh, anyway, repeat this. Yeah, at our school they do like fitness screening, so like every half year they put on a recording of the same guy on the radio, and he goes like, no, we're gonna do a push-up. Down, up, 1. And he goes to like 45, because like that's like the most push-ups that anyone can do. Like they're really hard because it's their second push-ups, like you go down, you stay there for a second and then come up. So like all the football kids who think they're so strong can only do 20 because they haven't actually exercised the part of like the endurance part of their muscles. They've only exercised like the looking big part of their muscles. Like I'm not calling out any football players, I'm only calling out the football players at our school. So yeah, good thing I'm not in my high school anymore. Everyone just despised the push-up test because the kids who couldn't do push-ups knew they couldn't do push-ups, and the kids who thought they could do push-ups also couldn't do push-ups, so just no one could do push-ups, and no one appreciated it very much. Also, this isn't going to be a comprehensive embroidery tutorial. I'm just going to be covering the fundamentals leading up to the stitches that you need in order to be a good embroiderister. So yeah, it looks like I measured my thread really close, so I'm gonna measure more, and so much for following the lines. Alright, so that is the back stitch. Wow, you have done the running stitch and you have done the back stitch. Now we are going to be doing a lovely little thing called French knots. And so for French knots, basically they're little tiny dots, and so I'm going to be doing a dot here. I'm not going to do as many of them, but maybe over here, and just draw a little bit of a dot on your fabric if you're following with me. I mean, if you're just watching this for the heck of it, then I don't know, draw this on a piece of paper and then like poke your pen through the paper as a pseudo embroidery. I'm gonna skip past yellow because it's gonna be hard to see on camera, so I'm gonna go with my green. I pull some thread. Wow, I love thread so much. It literally brings me so much serotonin just buying it, and it's an unhealthy addiction, just buying so much thread. But I did organize all that thread in my previous video. So anyway, I've threaded my needle again, and I'm going to knot the end again just to make sure that nothing becomes undone. And then I'm gonna go underneath and stick her through. And this is going to be the fun part, because this knot is hard to get, but if you do it right, it's pretty easy, which is like a complete conundrum or whatever. So first, take your thread and take your needle and make sure your thread is pointing left and your needle is also pointing left. So then take your needle and bring it behind your thread like so, and then wrap this thread once, twice. So you wrapped your thread twice around the needle, and then you are going to stick your needle right back into the fabric, not in the hole that you made, but just close to it, and then pull this thread. Keep pulling the thread while you stick the needle through. Pull that thread through and just keep pulling it, and then slowly let it in. And that's a French knot. It's really, really tiny, but it's really, really cute too. So this is going to be nice to create a little dot detail, so I'm going to show you this again. So stick your thread through the dot, stick your needle I should say, pull that through, pull the thread to the left, bring the needle behind the thread and wrap it once, twice, Then stick your needle right beside where you put in thread initially. Then keep that thread taut while you pull it through. And that's called a French knot, if I didn't say it already. These videos either go really fast or really slow, and I feel like this one's going pretty fast, but I honestly can never tell. Until I edit. It's always long when I edit it. And I always go really slowly and like want to yell at myself. Anyway, so I'm going to just do this again, just one final time, just to emphasize it. So remember, bring your thread up, hold the thread to the left, bring your needle behind, and then 1 and 2, and down. Wow. So there you go. That's some of the French knots that we're making right now. Hello everyone. So I actually filmed this video, and just filming the embroidery basics took me about 45 minutes, which is like significantly longer than it took me to actually film the bracelet like embroidery. And the reason why it took so long is because I changed the design that I wanted to do about halfway through, so I showed you way more than you need to know. So I took out all the other stitches that I did, and I only left the back stitch and the French knots, because those are the only ones that you need to know. Because the back stitch, I mean, you don't even really need to know the back stitch either, because it's going in and out. But I left the back stitch in as sort of a basic, and you know, running stitch is sort of the fundamentals. But the rest of them, you're going to see more stitches on there. You don't need to worry about that at all. But if you do want to see a video about that in the future, I mean, comment down below. I just thought it wasn't really relevant, and I do want to edit this video and get it out to you in a week's time, because I don't want to do any less frequently than that, because I know you guys like watching my videos. So anyway, that's the tea in summary. That's why there are some stitches on there that I didn't show you how to do. So I was just playing around with some designs, and I really like the idea of doing one with sort of a couple clusters of little flowers. I think I'm gonna do one big one and then like 2 little ones, sort of like that, with maybe some French knots with green in here. So I'll show you how to do this, worry not. So I'm going to be doing this one. So first we're going to be making the big flower in the center, and with the big flower in the center I'm going to be using a light pink. Let's check out our thread ship colors to see which colors we have. Looking at our thread ship colors, I like this one. Sorry, it's so crinkly. Oh no. And I'm going to take out a lot of thread for this one, probably about 1.5 meters. And what I'm going to be doing here is a stitch that it's not really a stitch, it's sort of a technique I learned called like a pinwheel thingy. Of course I learned it on YouTube, but I'll just sort of be replicating that on a bracelet. And what this is going to use is a variant of like the running stitch, but sort of in a circular or radial pattern. And then I'm going to be doing another sort of form of the running stitch, but instead of going through the bracelet, it's going to be on top of the bracelet. And what this is going to do is this is going to create a really pretty textured and raised effect that's going to give the bracelet a 3-dimensional effect. But for now I'm going to thread this. I have so much thread on my desk now. But I'm going to thread this needle. And now is when I'm going to give the extra and additional precaution. Please do not attempt this unless you are at least 15 years old and or you are comfortable with a needle. I'm going to stick my needle into the middle of the bracelet, which is about here, and to do this I'm going to hold the needle in between my 2 fingers and then grasp the bracelet with my 2 hands. So I'm going to center the needle approximately and sort of push down, and what this is going to do is this is going to bring the needle through like so, and so you can see it's right there. So it's not exactly in the center, so I'm going to bring it out, move it a very tiny bit so it's a little bit more in the center, because I want it to be perfect. I don't really mind how long it takes. But once it's done, push that needle through by pulling the 2 sides of the bracelet down like so. Again, the bracelet's really thick, so I'm just trying to be as careful as possible. And then really be careful with this needle. Don't be talking to anyone and moving your hands. So bring that needle through. You're gonna have to pull kind of tightly. Bring it all the way through. So now I'm going to be making a 5-pronged flower. So I'm going to start at the bottom left. So I'm going to bring this needle down here. It doesn't matter, honestly. This bracelet is 11 strings wide and it's just a gradient alpha. I'm going to bring this down, try to aim it between rows, so that way it's easier, because then the needle can slide right through the rows instead of having to puncture through the thread. So that's one side of the flower. Then we're going to poke it back through the center. So try and get a little bit of a point with one hand, and then push it down with the two hands. And then bring that needle down so it's to the sort of top right. So think like Patrick Star, that's like the closest I can say. But you're gonna make this in like the form of Patrick Star. Wait, Patrick Star, like the guy from SpongeBob, not like the makeup dude. But anyway, so then bring the needle back into the center, and then I'm going to bring that back up to the vertical, so a little bit higher than the upper right arm. And I'm gonna bring this back into the center. And I'm going to reach out so it's approximately symmetrical to the other string. And then stick it down at the bottom, approximately symmetrical to that first stitch that you made. And stick that back down in the center. Alright, so now you have this approximate 5-star looking thingy, and that's okay if it's not completely even, because we are going to do something that is just going to make it look beautiful. So I'm going to stick my needle once again through the center, or a little bit close to it, because I don't want to undo that stitch that we just did. So do it right next to that center. And now we're going to stick our needle through this stitch right here, like that. And then we're going to go in a clockwise motion. I'm going to skip the next one and then stick my needle underneath that third one. And then I'm going to skip the fourth one and go underneath the fifth one. And then I'm going to skip the next one and go underneath the next one. And you're going to repeat this cycle of going underneath and then skipping and then underneath and skipping till you reach the outside of the circle. Alright, and once your flower is done, it's going to look something like this. Look at that, it's a little bit raised, so it's really cute, and it's pretty secure too. So there are some little stalks poking out here, but that's okay. We're going to add some French knots later on in green, so we can sort of cover that up. So for now, I'm going to take my thread, and where it would go in next, it would go underneath right about at the top. I'm going to stick my needle a little bit underneath the flower so you can't really see it, and I'm going to push through and pull that. So we have this nice completed flower over here. So now I think I'm going to go in with some darker pink, and I'm going to do maybe one flower over here, one flower over here, and then add in some vinyl French knots in green in order to just complete that look. I'm going to get my dark pink thread for now. And now actually I think instead of doing two big ones, I'm going to do a couple of little ones, but instead of doing like pinwheels like this, which take a while, I'm just going to do really fat French knots. So in order to do a really fat French knot, you do a skinny French knot, but you make it fat. So I will elaborate. So I'm going to stick my needle a little bit to the right of this flower. So right here is okay. Hopefully it's focusing all right. I'm going to pull it through. And then remember, like we did a French knot before, where we would hold our thread to the left and then make two overhand loops. Well, we're gonna do another one, and then we're gonna do another one, maybe another one or two. We'll stop it at 6. I think that was 6. And then I'm going to stick it back in right next to the place where it came from. And this is kind of hard to coordinate on a bracelet, but it's okay, I believe in you. I'm gonna stick it through and pull. Sorry for the camera angles here, it's really hard to watch the bracelet and your needle at the same time without, like, you know, stabbing yourself. If this doesn't work, it might also help to stick your needle a little bit like in the knot right next to that one, because if it goes right back into that hole, it's just going to kind of unravel. But if you go right next to it, then it can actually create some sort of knot. So that's always a good tip if you find that it doesn't work out for you. So now I have this sort of bigger French knot. It's not as tiny as the original one. So I'm just going to do a couple of these just to add some spice. You know, as you see fit, it's really up to you. Alright, so I think that's going to be it, and right now I'm just going to go back in with some green. I'm not going to show that process again on threading your needle, because by now I hope you know how to do that. But I'm just going to go back and do some green French knots, and then hopefully we'll be all done. Alright, so I think I'm done at this point. I have some threads in the back hanging out, so I'm just going to take the longest ones and tie them together, just so the stitches don't become undone. I'm going to do a square knot, so I'm going to take the left one and put it over the right one, and then bring that left one underneath and pull. I'm going to do this again, but bring the right one on top of the left one and bring that one over and around and pull that pretty tightly. And then you can cut those off. And then I'm just going to cut off these little flyaways over here. And yeah, this one I'm a little afraid to cut off right now, so I'm just going to take some spare thread. I'm going to thread my needle. Not really bothered with the thread or anything. Oh, that was pretty fast, wow. And then I'm going to go in and in the back just tie that down. So I'm going to do some stitches, just some overhand stitches. We didn't go over this, but you kind of just go over just to sew everything in place. And again, there's no real science, just sort of do what feels most secure for you. And then you can, oh, I should have made this a lot longer, and then I'm going to try and do another square knot to tie this off. But in doing so, this will sort of secure the back and make everything a lot better, because it's not like you're going to be putting this in embroidery hoop where you don't see the back. Like, someone wearing it won't see the back, but that it will be like in constant contact with their wrist. And so we want to just make sure everything's secure, and then I'm just going to cut all these flyaways off a little bit more. So that's pretty much it. You are free to wear your bracelet now or do whatever you'd like with it, but it has this sort of raised texture, if you can see from up here. But I really like embroidering on bracelets. This was actually the first time that I embroidered flowers on bracelets. I've usually done single color items, but this was really pretty. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'd also like to give another shout out to DMC for sponsoring this video. And if you go on DMC's website, you can use code INNOVATE for 10% off your order. Exclusions do apply, like you can't use this on clearance items or bundle items. This code will be valid until January 1st, 2021. If you're watching this video past then, check the description for an updated discount code. And yeah, go buy some string, go learn how to embroider. It's gonna be great. Go make bracelets. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Just giving a shout out to all my patrons, but especially my top tier supporters, Jacqueline, Nancy, and Roxanne. Thank you guys so much for all your support, and I'm gonna see you in the next video. Bye!